Hey, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. This is Naaman with the Great Millstone Camp here in DC, back for another video. But first and foremost, let me check my volume here. First and foremost, call hello Yahweh, Hashem Yahushua, Hashem Rakahabadash, and of course, double honors go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. All right. I want to also send out salutations to the fellow Akim that are out there on the highways and byways, pushing the truth across the four corners of the earth, of course. And we do this with the aid of the many videos that are out there that serve as edification for the hopeful elect of our people, because that's ultimately what we're out here for. All right, to bring our people back into the fold, into the Commonwealth. All right, reminding them of who they are. Of course, all we can do is plant that seed. Of course, the watering and the growth thereafter, that's totally up to the Holy Spirit, Yahweh, Yahweh Shah. All right. This is the copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statutes that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Fair use, fair use, fair use. All right. Whoa, wouldn't you know, these sneaky bastards. Something I have to try to remind people of all the times, and we've been out there and we keep telling you that these devils, what they do, they're good at distracting the people and then do shit behind your back. And a lot of these sporting events and what else, you got to be careful, like, something's going on. After a while, you just develop this like sixth sense, as we always say. All right. Well, lo and behold, what these motherfuckers have done. Now, everybody knows that, we're currently in a war with Iran, and they're real low as far as not many people, especially the younger generation, have not registered. All right. So from the time of Vietnam up until now, during the time of Vietnam, we're talking about 50 years ago or better, you had a reserve of around 700,000. Let's say 750,000. Let's just give it that. Well, now you only have a tenth of that. So what do you think's coming? All right. So what we have here, again, these motherfuckers are sneaky. What Congress did this past December, look at it. Congress quietly moves the U.S. closer to military draft. It's coming. It's coming because a lot of people have caught on, at least enough to figure out, no, I'm not going over there fighting for these motherfuckers, for Israel. It says Congress quietly moves U.S. closer to military draft with the passage of the NDAA. What did we tell you years ago during Obama? All right. He says a sweeping change to the Selective Service will attempt to automatically sign American males up to serve. Get a load of that. A provision in this year's NDAA, all right, will require the Selective Service system to find a way to make registering for the draft automatic instead of letting 18-year-old males sign up themselves, which is current practice. Because evidently, it's not working. All right, it says they would have a year to try to construct a list of all potential draftees in the U.S. Now, how do you suppose they're coming up with all this? Because you give them this information, through all the shit that you sign up for, you gamers, all of this. You gave them the information. Yeah. It says they're going to pull information from other federal databases. Automatic draft registration will start a year after the 2026 NDAA is signed into law, unless the Selective Service is repealed before then. This doesn't mean that a draft is being activated right away or that those registered will be sent induction orders, although preparing to do so is the sole purpose of making this list. This will, however, be the largest change in Selective Service law since 1980 under Jimmy Carter, and will move the U.S. closer to activation of a draft than at any time in the last half century. To be sure, automatic registration is a response to a growing recognition that the current system is an abject failure in the face of pervasive non-compliance. Because, again, people are catching on to the bullshit. I'm not going to die for these motherfuckers over there always starting shit. And people have come to the realization that those aren't the chosen anyway. Not of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They serve another God. All right? It says few young men register voluntarily, what did I just say earlier? And almost none of them report their new addresses to the Selective Service each time they move. As a result, the current database is so incomplete and inaccurate that it would be less than useless for an actual draft, according to Bernard Rockster, all right, who was director of the Selective Service system from 79 to 81, testifying in 2019. The obvious congressional response would be to end the registration program and abolish the Selective Service system as a failure and unfit for its stated purpose, even if one supports a draft. But neither Democrats nor Republicans seem willing to let go of their fantasies of a ready-to-go drafty list, which will allow them to plan. Have you ever noticed they can always come together for some shit they really want to come together on that's not really beneficial? All right, but hey, we back here, we rejoicing, because all of these prophecies, everything that Great Millstone has ever told you, by way of via the Holy Spirit, has come to pass. Told you. As the elder apostle Tahar always said, you got so used to being comfortable. All right. Well, the end for that is at the door. All right. It says this will allow them to plan for endless, unlimited wars without having to worry about whether enough Americans will be willing to fight. See. Oh, man. This is, and others have drawn, have made mention of, you know what? You always have money for shit like this, but for actually helping people, your own citizens. Now we know Jake, we're never gonna get, I think everybody knows what they made plain, the U.S., Israel, and Argentina, about what they think of us, and that UN resolution that just recently, that Ghana spoke at the UN. So we know, that's why we keep trying to tell you, Isaiah 51 and 14, the captive exile hasteneth to be loose. That's the mindset you should be in. Not wanting to stay here and constantly being used by a system of people that don't give a fuck about you one way or the other. You're just, a toy soldier or whatever. Less than that for us. All right, it says, Keeping conscription on a hair trigger, like keeping nuclear weapons, and that's talking about people, all right, having a ready force. It says willing to fight them. Keeping conscription on a hair trigger, like keeping nuclear weapons on a hair trigger, allows these weapons to be used as part of the comparing people to having an arsenal of weapons. All right, it says both have broad bipartisan support. The idea of automatic draft registration originated within the Selective Service during the Biden administration and was introduced in Congress in 2024 by a Democrat. See, they all work together. It says, but a database-driven process aligns perfectly with Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, in its penchant for automated aggregation, matching, and use of data originally collected for unrelated purposes. Listen to that. Originally collected for unrelated purposes, meaning they, at any time, all right, can use information however they want, despite what they say to your face. All right, they can do whatever they want. It says automatic draft registration won't make a draft any easier to administer or enforce. Garbage in, garbage out. Merging of lists compiled for other purposes will result in a list of potential draftees and their mailing addresses that's just as incomplete and inaccurate as the current one. That's true. The draft still isn't a feasible option, and abolishing the Selective Service remains the only realistic course of action. The lesson of the last 45 years of draft registration and of the quiet but persistent non-compliance by generations of potential draftees is that young Americans want to make their own choices of which wars, if any, they will fight. But you think these people want to hear that shit? No. All right, it says we should thank them for their service in countering military adventurism. All right, that's another way to look at it. We'll need to keep reminding military planners that calling draft registration automatic won't make young people submit to a draft without resistance. All right, because I heard stories when I was in the service about what they did in Vietnam with motherfuckers coming up to recruiting officers and in dresses and shit, you know, shit like that. And one told him, no shit, I don't know if anyone say this, but one told him, said, if you can't fit this up in there, I shouldn't have said that, but in any case, people are going to do what they're going to do to try to get out of it. All right. All right, let's see. It says, if a draftee doesn't report for induction as ordered, the Selective Service will have no way to prove whether they did so knowingly or willfully, or whether they didn't get the message, aren't actually subject to the draft, or assume the induction order was a scam. There was a video, I didn't think to pull it up before doing this. This woman said her kid is in college and she's disabled. And this is a Jake. And she just happened to be around with her daughter when she got the call. And the recruiter was like, you know, asking her all these questions. She asked, well, you know, and this is one of the first time that she became aware of what was going on, because I think she did say that she had registered, but that her daughter was telling what physical impairments that she had, and that she wasn't, you know, and he let it be known that it came from a list, that it was automatic, and that was the first time that they were aware of what was going on. All right. No longer are they depending on, of course, you going down to a post office or whatever and filling out that registration card. No, like it said in this article earlier, they're getting their information from shit at Facebook, all these, you know, Instagram. They're pulling all of this. And they had a show back in the day, every now and then I'll bring this up, I think it was 2009, Oh, wait a minute. No. It wasn't that long ago. Oh, man. When was this? I believe it was called The Hunt. Hold on. Wait a minute. It was on CBS. Let's see. It may have been Hunted. Let's try that. Let's see. Damn, I was almost right. If this is, hold on. No, wait a minute. Let's see. Let's see. No, that's British. Let's see. TV show. Hold on. It was 2017. Okay, so 9 years ago. It says, let me get the, it was based on the British. Okay. I'm trying to get, hold on. Because I was watching the show and I saw them mention, they might have just cut this off because it was getting too deep into how they were tracking people. I'm trying to get the let's see. It says 18 ordinary people go on the run to try to outsmart the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and let's see, hold on. You can still see it on Prime Video. Let's see. Season 1, Episode 1. 9 teams of 2. You are given, if I remember the show correctly, you're told to prepare like a bug out bag or something like that, and just go on about your life until the moment you get the go ahead, and you'll have someone come up to you and say, you know, it's a go. So from that point on, you're on the run. I saw some people get into car accidents, and of course the black woman got caught. She was on the fucking phone and shit. It says 9 teams of 2 go on the run as fugitives from highly skilled investigators, with $250,000 on the line for each team that can last 28 days without being captured. As one team loses precious time trying to get out of the town, another team's plans may be undone by a number 2 pencil. I mean, you just motherfucker panicking and shit. It was a pretty good show. But again, they let it be known that, okay, all this information that you provided on Facebook, there was a scene where they actually made the comments, because you got people that were United States Marshals, you have Navy SEALs, Green Berets, like I said, Marshals. I can't remember if FBI was in that or not, but you know, that were part of the game. So they let it be known, well, let's see, she's got an aunt, Joan, in let's see, Montana somewhere. So guess what? They were posted up in Montana. This is how they would do it. You give them all this information. All right. So let's see. Skipping down, says U.S. citizens other than those under court supervision, after being convicted of crimes, and men 18 and 26 required to report changes of address to the Selective Service. All right. It says the address in the Social Security record may be the address where a person lived when they were first assigned a Social Security number. Now, it could be years ago. The address in IRS or other federal records may be a parent's address or another nominal legal residence where they aren't normally present to sign for an induction notice or other mail. Then they get into this gender shit. All right. You might have had a sex change since. I'm not going to even go into that. But who can be drafted also depends on citizenship, immigration, and visa status. All right. yeah, so again, these sneaky devils, this is what they did. All right, they went behind while you were distracted. Remember, this was December. What was going on in December? The playoffs, right? All right. While you were distracted, this is what is going on. All right, let's see what else we got here. All right, that's not what I wanted. I thought I had something else, but I think you get it. Again, you know, for you Jakes, I don't know what to tell you, you know. Like I said, the UN thing, of course, is on people's mind right now. You know, along with this is a big deal, but the little that they think of you, and yet they want you in there to fight in all their wars like we have. All right. Like, wow. Ain't this some bullshit? It says they quietly moved, and this is December 16th. This is a little over 3 months ago. Oh, 3.5. Look at this. Quietly moves U.S. closer to military draft. Hey, that's all I got to say on it. You know, it's one of these things, Jay. You gotta keep your eyes open. I say that at the end of all my videos. Be circumspect. You know, these motherfuckers are liable to pull anything at any time. And when the 26th of December comes this year, it goes into effect. Although I really don't think we have that long until something kicks off. All right, because they're trying to hide it, but the U.S. is getting their little asses, their arses kicked. All right, so with that, hey, until the next video, once again, hey, keep your eyes and ears open. All right, shit like this is more sure to come. All right, so with that, until the next video, hey, shalom.